like right now, I'm trying to avoid pregnancy, and it's been really interesting. And I probably can talk more about this, about being postpartum and tracking my cycle, because tracking my cycle for the last few years, it's been so interesting, and I knew my body inside and out. Now I don't have a period, and I haven't. It's been what, 6 months, nearly 7 months since I've had my son. I haven't got a period yet. Don't know when I'll get a period. That's okay. um, but it's so interesting to see like what my body is trying to do. It's trying to tell me that little things are happening. That's trying to. I can see my body trying to ovulate, but it hasn't gotten there yet. But again, I'm so glad that I have this information, and I can use this information to sort of help me adjust my behavior. That's what I think is really really cool about it. I don't know, cool, is that a good word to say? Probably not these days, but but no, it's so fascinating. I find it fascinating. I find it so empowering, knowing this about my body and listening to what my body's telling me. So yes, I think it's really important to know that the follicular phase, that's sort of what's going to determine how long your menstrual cycle is. So things like stress, illness, travel even, they can all show up. They can all show up in changes in your menstrual cycle and potentially even delay ovulation. So that's why utilizing apps and things, it can be tricky, because they don't know that's what's happening to your body. They don't know that's what's happening to your cycle. They're just using the calculations from your last, previous cycles that you've entered to sort of try and establish that fertile window and when ovulation's occurring and when your next period will be. And I even know when I was entering the details in my app, it asks you, this is when I wasn't tracking my cycle. I hadn't learned fertility awareness, but it asks you, how long is your luteal phase? I don't know. And I think a lot of people would probably be the same. They'd probably enter just a random number in there that it says, enter a number between this and this, and you probably would. And then it's potentially incorrectly telling you how long your luteal phase is, because that's the data you gave it. But how are you meant to know anything else? Because you've never been taught to learn how to track and pick up ovulation and then know how long your luteal phase is. Knowing that the information you put in is really important. But like I said, you only know what you know, and then a lot of people then rely on these apps. And I get technology is great, but I get it's not perfect. Even learning to track your cycle isn't going to be perfect. Like I said, you can never predict anything. You can never predict ovulation and when it's going to occur. But it's important to establish what is sort of normal and know what is normal for you. So then by looking into this, you start to learn all of that. You start to learn what is a normal cycle for you. So when you do notice abnormalities, when you do see that, oh, my cycle has changed, what has happened? If you've going through times of stress, you can be like, yeah, I can say I've ovulated late this month. I know my period's going to come late. I don't need to stress. I don't need to go buy a pregnancy test and freak out that I'm pregnant, because I know what my body has done this month. I think that's what's so fascinating about understanding your body and being so empowered to listen to these cues. You learn all these little tips and tricks, which I think is so amazing. I think it's really important to, as well, sort of establish what is, I guess, considered normal in terms of menstrual cycle. So, of course, I've explained that they're not always 28 days in length. I think that's really important to know. There is flexibility. That follicular phase is what's flexible. Luteal phase is what's consistent. But most people, most women or people who menstruate will have about a 24 to 35 day cycle. That is normal. It can vary from 21 to 35. Also know that is also normal, but on average, 90% of people will have a menstrual cycle between 24 and 35 days. Of course, there is flexibility in that, and still all considered normal. I think it's really important to know that if you have significant changes to your menstrual cycle, so say it was 30 days and now you're like, oh, now it's gone to 42, that's a bit strange. If that consistently happens and you notice that things are changing, well, that might be time to sort of speak to a medical professional and see if there is anything underlying going on. But again, really important to establish what is normal for you, so then you know when things are abnormal. The same thing goes for how long you bleed for. On average, people will bleed for 4 to 6 days. That is normal. When you have really light periods, or, especially like only 1 or 2 days, or on the other hand, really long periods like lasting for more than 7 days, those are out of the ordinary. But again, like I said, most people will experience 4 to 6. And then it comes down to blood loss as well. How frequently are you changing your pad or tampon? I know we have amazing things like menstrual cups and and period underwear these days. I'm all for these types of menstrual products because they are better for the environment, so it is great. But even like menstrual cups, they sort of enable you now to measure actually how much blood you're losing. Like beforehand, you would have no idea, like, oh yeah, I just change a pad every 3-4 hours sort of thing. Well, now you can actually go, I know exactly how many mils I'm losing. So if you are using one, that can be something that you can keep track of, and then you might experience a really heavy period one time, and again, something to sort of keep an eye on. But these are things that, we have these things available to us that can sort of empower us to know more about our bodies and what is happening. I guess on average, most people will lose about 30 mils during their menstrual cycle, which after what we go through in having a menstrual cycle and how it feels like it goes on for days and days and days, 30 mils isn't a lot to lose. You feel like you're losing a lot more. But that's on average what people lose. If you are losing more than 80 mils, that is a very heavy period. It puts you at risk of anemia, iron deficiency, those sort of things. Really important to see your medical professional about this one, or your healthcare provider, to help sort of see if there's anything they can do to sort of help with that and monitor those levels too. So yeah, I guess, on what's normal, abnormal, like I said, if you're having changes in the patterns of your menstrual cycle, heavy periods, more than 80 mils, having bleeding more than 7 days, or your periods coming, quite frequently, less than every 3 weeks, or on the other hand, months and months in between, or the other one that I haven't spoken about, pain. Pain isn't normal. There's a lot of talk about pain and medical gaslighting, and that people with endometriosis don't get diagnosed for like 7-8 years. And I think it's really important, if you do experience pain, especially debilitating pain, where you can't get out of bed, you can't go to work, you can't go to school, you can't do any of those things, please get checked out. That's not normal. I feel like if we can establish that the normal process is to go and see your doctor and start talking about this earlier, then hopefully people can get diagnosed a lot sooner. Yes, the gold standard for diagnosing things like endometriosis is a laparoscopy procedure, so they can actually look inside your tummy and see and establish if there is any endometriosis there. But we have to start somewhere. I think the government has just announced an inquiry into women's pain, so hopefully things are starting to take action, and this will be investigated more. We can sort of help reduce the stigma associated with pain, and that it's just in our heads or anxiety or anything like that, that it can actually be established that women experience a lot of pain, and we need to do something about it. So hopefully that is a good step in the right direction for making change on that topic. Anyway, I think that's all that I wanted to cover today in terms of just quickly talking to you about the menstrual cycle. It's not always 28 days, it's varied. Know what's normal for you, and then you can establish when things are abnormal, and you can go seek further support. So that's what I really want people to understand. Learning about your menstrual cycle, I probably harp on about it all the time, but it is really like your fifth vital sign. And it's telling you so much information about your body, your overall general health. So learning to pick up on those signs can be really important for then taking action, and knowing, when to go see someone and talk to someone about it. But I also wanted to, for you to understand that the hormones and everything that's produced over the menstrual cycle is so important for every aspect of your body and all the things and all its functions. It's so important. Don't be afraid of your menstrual cycle. Don't be feared. It's not something that's disgusting. It's a normal part of being a woman or being a person who menstruates. And we do have around 400 to 500 menstrual cycles in our life. That's quite a lot of menstrual cycles. And your body wants you to conceive each and every time, which is quite wild. So of course, over those 400 to 500 cycles, your intentions are going to change. It's going to be different over different times in your life, whether you wanting to avoid pregnancy, get pregnant, or you postpartum, like me at the moment. And going through different, you want to space out children, those sort of things. You're going to go through different life phases. So it's really, I think it's really cool to sort of then establish what's normal. I'm really interested to see what my body does once my period comes back. Does it go back to how it normally cycled? I'm really intrigued to sort of see what happens. Again, the women's body, it amazes me. So I find it also fascinating. That's another thing. When you break it all down, if you have a 30-day cycle, you only have 12 times your period, 12 times a year. It's really not that many. And sometimes you can experience cycles where you don't ovulate. Again, every now and again, it can be normal to experience that. So you might only have 10 where you actually ovulate and a true period that you experience. if you are trying to conceive, that's not a lot of times to try. And I think that's really important to establish as well. But on the other hand, if you're not trying to get pregnant, you might not want to experience 10 to 12 periods a year. But I guess everyone's different. I don't mind my period these days. Again, I feel like it's sort of a way of seeing what my body's doing. That's me anyway. So I hope you have learned something from this. Again, probably can realize from now I can talk a lot on these topics and I can blubber on, but if you're happy to listen to me talking about this topic, thank you. As always, if this is something that you want to follow on, learn more about your body, subscribe to my channel, save this video for later, share it with a share it with a friend, whatever you want to do. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of it. And thank you for listening to me talk on this topic. If you have any questions that you want me to cover during these talks, feel free to DM me on my Instagram @YourWomen'sHealthEducator, and I can definitely talk on the topics and cover any of those questions that you may have in my next video. And as always, I hope you have a lovely day, and sending love, luck, and a sprinkle of baby dust your way, no matter if you are trying to conceive or not. Enjoy that baby dust.